right. Hi, folks. I'm just getting set up. This is Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, and I'm going to do some free live tarot readings this afternoon. Hope you're all doing wonderfully well this weekend. It started to warm up where I live, so I have my air conditioner running in the background. I hope that it's not bothersome. We'll see. I'm planning to do some readings with my handy dandy Marseille deck. That's the CBD Convert Bendove Tarot de Marseille. This is, of course, my my copy of the deck that is slightly censored using a black Sharpie. I have another copy of the exact same deck that is not censored that I use for my own purposes, but YouTube-friendly version of the deck. In case you're interested, if anybody, those of you who've already done this already know, but if any of you ever care to sign up for a private paid reading with me, I have quite a number of different decks besides this one, but I like to ensure that YouTube will not get angry at me for showing nudity, which of course appears on many of the tarot cards, and so that motivates my choice to use this this particular deck. I bought this fantastic jasmine incense the other day at this really cool shop not too far from where I live. And rather than burning Palo Santo like I usually do, I think I'm going to burn a cone of this incense because I'm kind of in love with it. It's jasmine, and oh, it's just sweet, but not too sweet, and really delicious. And I was craving that, so I'm going to burn a cone of this incense. Let's see, I'd better do it this way. And this little bowl, I think it's a selenite bowl. I bought at a huge, like, crystal metaphysical shop up near where my brother lives in Washington State. And I love this little bowl, and I've just filled it with some salt to make an incense burner. I've also got a big mug of loose leaf chai tea that I brewed. This is delicious tea from a local shop about 5 minutes from my house. I bought a little bag of it the other day, and I've almost drunk the entire bag. so there you go. All right, I'm just going to wave the cards over the jasmine incense. And in just a moment here, I will put together my list. Okay, I think that incense is burning. If it goes out, I will just relight it. All right, so I'm going to aim for about 10 readings today. First come, first served, as per usual. We've got a lot of folks here. Hi, everybody. This is great. So looks like the first to request a reading was Jean, so we'll put Jean up there. Followed by Vanilla and Pie. Which brings us to number 3, Country Love Homestead. I think you're new. Hi, Country Love Homestead. I don't think I recognize your username. Welcome. Let's see. Aya Ada, welcome. Followed by Priscilla. And then Maria Scorpio. Let's see. Nisi Gigi is number 7. Followed by Tori. And then Fabi. Diamond Girl. Okay, that's 10. I think I got everyone who has requested a reading. I'm going to close the list at this point because I said I was going to aim for 10, and I see 10 on my list at the moment. If some folks are not able to stick around and miss their spot, then maybe I'll reopen. But let me aim to honor these commitments to reading for these 10 folks, and then we'll see where things go. It usually takes me 10 to 15 minutes per person, so this is probably at least 2 hours of readings, and by then I'll be exhausted, and so we'll be ready to move on. So here, take a look at where you are on the list. I'll read it out in case you can't read my handwriting. Number 1, Jean. Number 2, Vanilla and Pie. 3, Country Love Homestead. 4, Aya Ada. 5, Priscilla. 6, Maria Scorpio. 7, Nisi Gigi. 8, Tori Marie. 9, Fabi. And 10, Diamond Girl. And so the way this works, for those of you who are new, is I will go in order of the list. I'll start with the first person. I'll call their name. If they're here, they can post their question in the chat. If they're not here, I'll call their name 3 times. And if I haven't heard from them, then I'm going to cross them out and move on to the next person. And they missed their reading for the day. But of course, I'd be happy to read for them in a future live stream. So you got 3 chances. I get that you can't always stick around for the full, however long you have to wait, 15 minutes or an hour or an hour and a half or whatever it might be. So that's the most equitable way that I've come up with to handle this. All right, so all of that said, and my incense is burning beautifully here, if you can see the way the smoke is coming off of that, and it smells delicious. So that means we're starting with Jean. So Jean, welcome. If you'd like to post your question in the, you're welcome to do that. All right. Okay. And we've got a follow-up from Friday because there's this guy who I think you were going to have coffee with or see. And we saw in your reading from Friday that he showed up as one of the pages and you showed up as one of the queens. But between you, there was an empress. And so we were trying to figure out who that empress was. And you're saying in the chat that he did mention both a mother and a sister. So your question today is, what are his feelings and intentions towards me after Friday? So let's pull 3 cards and see what we get. So what is this person I's feelings and intentions towards Jean after their meeting on Friday? And hello, welcome to Noxie. And I've got my list closed at the moment. But I might reopen it later on if you want to check back, or of course you're welcome to hang out. I've got 10 on my list, and that's where I've closed it off for now. We'll see what happens in the next hour or two. You're welcome, Noxie. Okay, so here we go. For Jean, we're going to pull 3 cards and see where that gets us. Okay, 5 cups. 4 coins. Ooh, and the Queen of Cups. So the specific question you asked, this is a little crooked. Let's see. There. I think that's more orthogonal. Okay, so the specific question you asked is, what are his thoughts and feelings? We've got thoughts represented by coins, and we've got feelings represented by cups. And it's, what are his thoughts and feelings about you? And this is a very beautiful set of cards, I would say. Feelings are very pleasurable in an embodied kind of sense. And I say that because with the 5 of cups, I think of, with fives, I think of the body, because we have 4 limbs in the head, right? And so I think of the body, right? And so with cups, it's physical pleasure is what I'm getting at, right? So he has, shall we say, physical desire is one of the things that he's feeling, I would say, in a kind of tender romantic sort of sense. With regard to what his thoughts are, we can look at the coins, and we've got 4 of them indicating stability of mind, feeling like the exchange that you have is solid between the 2 of you, and then seeing you showing as the Queen of Cups. Well, the Queen of Cups, she's the woman of the heart. So I'd say there's very much a sense of, shall we say, tender feelings, cups kind of feelings that he has towards you. Now, those of you who have watched my channel for a while know that I always like to find a tension in the cards, and so sometimes that's easy. Sometimes there's a really obvious tension. Here, not so much. These are all really positive kinds of cards, but I always like to try to look at it from a different angle, right? If it looks all really good, I want to see where's the catch, and if it all looks really bad, I want to see where's the bright side to this, right? And so if I'm looking for where might there be some tension here, just to try to give as comprehensive a story as I can, the tension could come a little bit here with the 4 of coins too. So on the one hand, there's a sense of a solid, valuable exchange. And I say that because coins are worth value and we exchange them with one another, right? And you had an exchange with this person last Friday, right? You met up for coffee or dinner or drinks or something. But with the 4s, we can also think about a sense of stagnation. That's the thing to beware of with 4s, is they can indicate that things don't change, right? So that can be good, or it can also be something to watch out for. Sort of depends on the context, right? So the other thing I would notice, of course, is the shield that we see on the 4 of coins, and the way that you think about what is the function of a shield. Well, a shield you use to protect or defend, right? And so there may be a sense on his part that he needs to defend or protect the relationship that he has with you right now. And that might be pushing him to keep things the way that they are, as opposed to allowing them to grow, or rather pushing them so that they will grow in some way. Does that make sense? So he might be a little bit on the defensive about things, but I think that's only because he values the connection with you, and because he's getting a very strong sense of personal pleasure and satisfaction out of it, right? So that's what I would. Let me just read what you're saying. He said that he was updating his dating profile. Updating his dating profile, like in a relationship with you? Is that what you're thinking? Or is that what you're saying? Yeah, we can definitely look at the card looking on. Surprise card. Okay. It's the Chariot. So we get you showing up as the Queen of Cups. This is, I think, pretty clearly him. So, with the Chariot, the question is always, is he coming or going? Right? Because with the Chariot, he's driving. What does a chariot do? It rides, or it drives, or it moves. And it can very much be his sense of like having succeeded, right? Like won a battle, something like that. And if you think of it, this is like a general in the war, and he's coming back, and he's like very excited because he's succeeded at something. Sometimes the Chariot can indicate that someone is taking off, right? Like leaving, that kind of a thing. I don't see that would be the case here, given the other cards that show up. This, especially with the 4, but if he's feeling personal desire and pleasure and a sense of valuable stability with you, then I think that the underlying energy, so to speak, or the card looking on, is more him feeling a sense of satisfaction in this. Although one other thing I would notice, there is a rhyme, so to speak, with the shield on the 4 of coins and the armor that the charioteer wears. So we're back to thinking about, if we're looking for attention here, he may be a little on the defensive. He may have his armor up, so to speak. Or with the Chariot, I think about in some sets of correspondences with the tarot, people will associate the Chariot with Cancer, right? The sign of the zodiac, the crab, right? And so if you think about a crab in its shape, the way that it might be protecting itself. And so that would be something else to think here, is that he may be a little on the defensive or protective, that kind of thing. So you say in the comments, he said he wanted to focus on relationships and trying to understand them. And when he said he was updating his dating profile, do you mean like he wants to date more? Like maybe not just you? Is that what you're thinking? Because if that's the case, I guess I'll just wait in the chat before I go off speculating on things. And hello to anyone who might be joining, who is joining. Let's see. Who have we got here? Mark, welcome. My list is closed at the moment. Let's see. Cole IJN 1011, welcome. My list is closed at the moment, although I may reopen it later. We'll see how things go with the current list. I am also available, so that everybody knows, I am also available for paid private readings, and you can check out the Linktree link in the video description for more information about those. So he's been sick for a long time, so he hasn't been meeting anyone, so it was a funny thing to say. Well, in any event, he's comfortable with you. I mean, that's really clear. He's comfortable with you in the sense that he feels like physically comfortable around you, and also his mind feels comfortable around you. Um, you say he's been sick with the Chariot. This because we're thinking about health with sickness. The Chariot, I think, indicates someone whose vitality is back, right? And so sometimes what can happen in that kind of situation is he might feel like if he's been sort of out of commission for a while, that he wants to play the field a little bit. But I don't think that that means, at least from the cards we see here, that he's not, that his like, that he doesn't have an interest in you, right? Um, so there it is. He feels physically comfortable around you, maybe a little defensive. We get with the armor and the shield. There is a sense that while his connection to you is valuable, that maybe it's not changing, which means it's not decreasing, but it's also not increasing, right? And he's seeing you as a kind of Queen of Cups figure, meaning someone who's the woman of love, the woman of the heart. So, a potential love interest, I would say. I guess if we're looking for one other point of tension that I do notice, and then I'm going to wrap it up here. With the Queen of Cups, of course, we always see the fact that her cup has a lid on it. And it's the only one in the deck where there's a cup with the lid on it. So sometimes we can read this as a sense of being a little closed off. And so maybe we could think about the shield, the armor, and the cup, the closed or lidded cup, as all representing a little sense of closed offness in the relationship between, or the connection rather, between the two of you. That while there's a sense of comfort, there's also things aren't changing. Why? Because of the armor and the closed offness. That would be the one other thing I'd notice. Okay, so there is your reading for Jean. And so next up, we have Vanilla and Pie. And Vanilla and Pie, feel free in the chat to say whatever you like. Yeah, I mean, as long as it's kind and within, reasonable and all of that. But as long as we're nice to each other, sure, feel free to say what you like. And Vanilla and Pie, it's your turn. So whenever you're ready to post your question, go ahead and do that. Welcome to those of you who might be joining. This is Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot doing some free live readings today. And we've got our question from Vanilla and Pie. All right. And that question is, What are D's next actions and feelings for me in love this May? So we'll pull 3 cards and see what we get. Okay. So, what are D's next actions and feelings for Vanilla and Pie regarding love in this month of May? Here we go. 6 coins. Queen of Cups again. 10 coins. Okay. So, lots of coins surrounding the Queen of Cups. And we can read left to right that there's an increase in the coins, right? And so we could think of this as an increase of importance, increase of value, but perhaps if we're looking for some tension here, to a point of being too much, right? 10 is a lot. 10 is the most. 10 can even be too much. And so we can think with the 6 that there's like things are moving like from point A to point B. With the 6, like there's an exchange of energy, like there's a channel or a path that things are flowing towards this Queen of Cups person, who's you, of course. But maybe there's a point where it's too nervous or anxious, or there's too much thinking going on, right? Like it gets to be too much, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but could indicate a certain amount of tension, right? The other thing to consider is, you asked specifically about love, right? And so what we see, while we do see a cups card, which is, of course, the suit one would associate with love, if this is representing you and everything around you is coins, it could indicate a little bit of a disconnect in the way that he values the relationship. For the Queen of Cups, there might be a sense of love, right? But what's surrounding her, instead of being other cards that could indicate specifically love, is more a sense of value or interest, right? Those are some of the words I would associate with all of these coins. Now, it's a growing value or growing interest, as I said, but it's not like cups. So, what I'm trying to get at is that I think that this person is going to become increasingly interested in you, but it's not 100% clear that it's in a romantic or love sense, right? It might be more in finding you important or finding you valuable, but not necessarily in terms of being like in love, right? So why don't we look at the bottom card of the deck and see if that changes anything? And it's the Emperor. And so I don't think that does change anything. I think it maybe sheds a little light, which is, now we've got a couple, right? We've got the Emperor and the Queen of Cups. And one thing I'd say that's really nice is that if we're talking about love, it's nice to see um, two cards show up who likely represent our querent and their love interests, which is exactly what we've got here, and who are kind of similar in rank, right? In other words, we don't have pages or knights showing up, although that can also those can also sometimes work together. But a queen and an emperor, we can see those two people matched with one another, right? Uh, but seeing him here, it's again, it's all coin stuff. So I'd say there's very much a sense of valuing you, but whether that's loving is different, right? Um, loving someone is different than valuing them or than finding them interesting or important, right? Or even exciting, right? Um, so I would say that there's an increase of interest in you, but I don't see like a clear indication of love, at least not at the moment. Although, a more practical kind of interest can turn into that thing potentially, um, although it certainly isn't guaranteed. All right. So that's what I would say. I mean, if you are looking for cups, if you are looking for love, I don't know that you're going to find it here with this particular person. At least not right now, right? Obviously, things change. Everything is subject to change. The law of impermanence. Um, it's a lot of coins. And, the other thing I'd say is that when I'm reading the tarot, when I see the court cards, the court card wants to do the thing that is its suit, right? So the Queen of Cups wants to love, for example, right? And so if she's surrounded by cups, then she gets to love. She wants to love and she gets to love. When I see something like this, where we've got a Queen of Cups surrounded by coins, it's she wants to love, but the context is not love. The context is exchange valuable insights with one another, conversation, um, valuable interactions that aren't necessarily love interactions. And so there is a little bit of a sense here of feeling like with this person, you're doing something that's sort of against your own personality or inclination, right? Okay, so that brings us to Country Love Homestead. Okay, and so for Country Love Homestead, we've got a great question here. And the question is, I'd like to know, what does D think of a romantic connection with me? The background is that they've been besties for over 20 years, but lately Country Love Homestead has been feeling the feels, but you don't want to ruin the friendship. That can be tricky. That can be tricky. So we want to know from this other person's perspective, what do they think about the possibility of a romantic connection with you? So we'll pull 3 cards for that and see what we get. And I'm just seeing, I know that I've missed some comments in the chat, but I do see one, which is, do I go live according to a schedule? And the answer is sort of. Lately, it's been pretty steadily Sunday afternoons around 2 or 3. I have a day job that keeps me very busy, and so occasionally I'm able to hop on more often. Like I was able to hop on this last Friday for like an hour and a half or something like that. But it's been pretty regularly on Sunday afternoons lately. I wish it was more often. And I am, of course, available for private readings at other times as well. And you can check out my Linktree link in the video description for more info about that. Okay, so here we go for Country Love Homestead. What does their friend D think of a possible romantic connection with them? All right, so we'll start with 3 cards. Okay, 2 coins. Knight of coins. And the Lovers. So here's what I'd say. And I suspect that other folks would potentially disagree with me, but we should look at the Lovers card first, I think, because this is a tricky card. And let me tell you how I read the tarot, and then, you take it or leave it. But I think that the images are very important, right? And the specific image that we find on each card in each deck is important, meaning that, like, if you use a different deck, you could get a different reading, because I think the image really does matter. And so in this deck, in the Marseille Tarot, on the Lover's card, we don't see 2 people who are like clearly happily in love with each other, as you might see in another version of this card in a tarot deck. In the Marseille Tarot, and in this particular deck, we see one person sandwiched between 2 others, as though the person is being forced to make a choice, and they can't. They're ambivalent. They're uncertain. They don't know what to do, and they feel sort of like they're stuck in between options. And so this card, even though it's called, it's Major Arcana number 6, and it's the Lovers is the title in French there. It's not necessarily the card one looks to for a happy romantic relationship. It's more about the card that indicates uncertainty, ambivalence, and that there's a potential choice to be made, but it's like an impossible choice, right? And so here I'm thinking, of course, given the very useful context and background you provided in your question about you don't want to ruin the friendship, right? And so there's a great ambivalence here between, oh no, if I or if this person D engages in a romantic relationship, could that ruin the friendship, or should they stick to the friendship even though it means ruling out the possibility of a romantic relationship? So looking at this card, I wanted to point that out first to sort of validate that I think their feelings are very much similar to what you're describing in not knowing what to do. If you're feeling this kind of connection or potential possibility for connection, I think they are too, but they are equally ambivalent and uncertain about whether or not that would be a good idea, right? So let's look at the other cards now and put that in conversation with this. The 2 coins, this is a meeting of minds, right? It's perfect balance, and it's 2 big coins, one I would say representing each of you, and they're like perfectly and beautifully, I may say, intertwined with one another, right? So this, I think, is representing your friendship in the sense that it's very valuable to both of you. It's equally valuable to both of you. It's balanced. It forms a figure 8 or a lemniscate, right? Indicating infinity. Could also be a Mobius strip, depending on if you're into that kind of thing. And so this is what I see as your friendship. And then what happens? Well, one of the coins, we've got 2 to start, and they're big. One of the coins is sort of selected, like there's an option that's chosen, and it shrinks a little smaller. And the person on the horse, the Knight of Coins here, is pursuing it. And what happens? They feel totally ambivalent about that, right? So there's a sense here of like taking something that really is working very well, your friendship, and then focusing it down, maybe selecting one aspect of it, trying to get it to be a romantic relationship, but resulting in feeling really unsure that that was the right selection to make. So I want to pull or look at rather the card at the bottom of the deck to see what other insight that could give. And it's just more coins. It's more coins here. So coins have been big today. With the 5, we can think of the body or also the hand, because we have 5 fingers. And so with the 5 of coins, I think you already, or this person D already has in their hand the thing that they value, which is you as a friend. And so that's how I would read this. Is I think that they are on some level also aware of this potential for a romantic connection, but I think that they've already got their grasp on something that they really value. And so they're incredibly ambivalent about changing the nature of that out of fear that it could be ruined. That's what I would say. Now, of course, this can all change. Everything is subject to change. Permanent. The law of impermanence reigns. So this is how things look right now. But like I would not say that we're in a situation where if you were to propose a romantic relationship that this person would jump on that idea, because I think that they really value what you guys already have, and had I seen some cups in here, or maybe a different combination, like if I'd seen maybe the Star card or the World card, that might indicate something that's more of a physical sort of romantic kind of relationship. But here I just don't see that, at least right now. All right. So that brings us to Ada, number 4. And you're very welcome, Country Love Homestead. Thanks for the great question. Okay, and the question from Ada is Zine thinking about marriage from Bushra, or with Bushra? And it's a crush. Okay. Let's see. All right. Is Zine thinking about marriage from Bushra? Here we go. We'll lay out 3 cards. First up is the World, followed by 9 batons, followed by Temperance, okay, let me look at this a minute. An interesting spread. So, of course, the first thing I notice is the Woman on the World card and the Woman on the Temperance card. And because I have no reason to think otherwise, I think they're the same person. I think they're Bushra, right? And that the spread is showing us a way in which she is changing, transitioning. I'm struggling to see whether or not this is marriage, and I don't think it is. Because with a marriage, we would expect to see an exchange between 2 people, and here I think we've got sort of one person. So, with the World card, we could think about the way in which the figure on the World card is totally self-reliant. She doesn't need anyone. She's near other people, but she's sort of cocooned herself, or she's sort of wrapped herself up so she can take care of herself. The Woman on the World card could potentially get married, but she doesn't need to, right? She's totally self-reliant, so she doesn't need to do that. With wands, we can see that this indicates almost like there's a block, like an obstacle would be a good way to put it. And so here's what I think is happening. I think I've got a picture of it now. This person, Zine, is not currently thinking about marriage with Bushra, because I think he wants her to change, or he would want her to change in some way before he would entertain those kinds of thoughts, if he would at all, right? And so how would he want her to change? Well, think of it this way. Here, Bushra, the woman, is protected, self-reliant, solitary. She's got all of her stuff together. A change in her behavior could make her an angel. What kind of an angel? Well, an angel of temperance, modesty, who is able to reconcile problems, like compromise, that kind of thing, in a way that the Woman on the World card will never compromise. She doesn't need to, because she doesn't need anybody else, right? She's fine on her own. Temperance is constantly trying to make sure that she's got the right amount of liquid poured in each of these glasses and that she absolutely doesn't spill a drop. Almost obsessively, she's pouring back and forth from one pitcher to the next, right? That's what the Angel of Temperance is doing. Back and forth, trying to reconcile, trying to compromise. Sure, is it okay? Is it the right amount? Is it too much? Is it too little, right? Which can be very useful, but can border on being obsessive at the same time. And at some point, the Angel of Temperance has to wonder, why am I trying so hard to make everything so balanced, right? Especially if she used to be the world, where why does she have to bother with this pour back and forth? She doesn't need to do this. So the quick and straightforward answer to your question, I think, is right now, no. I don't see a thinking specifically about marriage, right? The more involved answer to your question, if we were to ask, well, why? If he's not, then why isn't he? And I think it's because it's not certain to him, of course, that you would be willing to make certain reconciliation, certain compromises, right? That you maybe are at the moment self-reliant enough that you wouldn't be willing to put a lot of effort into maintaining the status quo. That could be another way of putting it, right? And that's, if he were to see that happen, then perhaps it would open up the door to marriage. But, it's up to you whether that's something that you would even want to consider. When I see the World card, I think, why would anybody change? Why would the world compromise for someone else? Why would the world, she's like floating up in the air and she doesn't even need wings. Here, Temperance has wings but isn't using them because she's stuck on the ground measuring out everything back and forth, when she could just fly away. But instead, she's so concerned with making sure everything gets measured out right, or that things get mixed together in exactly the right way, right? And the World card's just like, no, I'm just going to dance. I'm just going to do my own thing over here. I don't need to bother with making sure I mix together correctly with other people. And so the change I think that this person D is looking for is a kind of change of behavior, or a change in your social interactions with him. And that's what I'm seeing with the nines. I think of changes, and with the batons, we can think of behavior. We can think of interactions, social interactions with others. And so I think he's looking for the world to change and become the Temperance. And, why would... you didn't ask whether that's a good idea or not, but I would ask, like, what? Why? Should you change who you are to get someone else to be more interested in you? But that's I've probably taken it as far as it can go. But that's where I would take it, is no, I don't think specifically marriage right at the moment. If I were to see marriage, I'd be looking for two human figures to represent the different querents, or the querent and the interested party, right? So like maybe a king and a queen, right? Or an emperor, empress, that kind of thing, alongside something to indicate an exchange. So like coins would do it, or perhaps cups. Although marriage is often as much or more about social interactions and money than it is about specifically love, right? People can be very much in love and never get married. Marriage and love, I think, are two potentially are two different concerns, right? And so can be represented by different suits in the tarot. The Sun card would be another one that I think would be really clearly indicating a long-lasting partnership. So there we go. That's what I would say about here. There's, rather than a current thinking about marriage, there's more a thinking about how Bushra could change or compromise or behave a little differently. Yeah, we can look at that. It's the Empress. Let's see. So with the Empress, you know, one thing to consider is who are all these people? And so one way to read it would be that we're still talking about the same person, right? The world becomes Temperance and then becomes the Empress. And so we could certainly read it that way, indicating again a sense that this person is changing. First, she's the world, and then she's Temperance, and then she is in control and she reigns and she's the Empress. And so again, especially then with the 9 of batons here, there's another emphasis on changing, right? Like the person becoming different from how they are now, right? I think that is the most obvious way to read these. And so, you know, we could think about, well, from being totally self-sufficient, self-reliant, changing so that she makes compromises, so that she mixes differently, we could say, and then finally sits down. And, you know, with the Empress, we can think of the mother of the tarot deck. She's sometimes called that. She's the woman of action. She's in a position to sort of take care of the personal realm, the domestic realm, right, in a person's life, to sort of orchestrate things behind the scenes, make sure things get done. But again, we're not seeing, you know, we're seeing 3 versions, I think, of the same woman, but we're not seeing a partner for this woman, right? And that would be sort of the first thing we'd want to look for, to say that there's something like marriage on this guy's mind. So, you know, another way to think about this would be like, maybe over time you could change in such a way that you become like the Empress. And then maybe that would change things, but you know, we still see her at the moment alone, right? As opposed to like something that looks like a marriage ceremony. Okay, so that was Ada's reading. We're an hour in, and I've gotten through 4. So next up will be Priscilla. If you're here, Priscilla, you're welcome to post your question. So you asked, if you change into the Empress, will he marry you? And I think we'd need to do another reading to, you know, because I think that the question the cards respond specifically to the question asked. And so if we have a new question, I think we need new cards. But I would say that if we were to look at the cards we pulled and think about what's implied there, I don't think there's anything definite, but I would say that as he sees you right now, he would want you to change, or he would want to change you. I think want you to change is the better way to phrase it, because there's no, like, he is not represented here at all, right? I don't see anything that he's in the picture at all, right now. And so I think he thinks you are changing or should change, but whether that means he would then marry you, I think isn't really answered by the cards, because that's not the question that was asked originally. Okay, so Priscilla wants to know about love and if she will meet someone new. So you're single, I assume, at the moment, and you want to know, is there someone to date anytime soon? So let's see. Okay, here we go. For Priscilla. 5 batons, 7 coins, and 2 batons. I'm going to go ahead and look at the surprise card now. It's the Queen of Coins. So, maybe it's obvious, but I don't see a lot of something indicating love or like a specific person. Soon was, I think, the phrase it. Like I would want to see some cups, or I would want to see a court card, or one of the major arcana that who you would want to date. I mean, so I am reading the Queen of Coins as you, Priscilla, and unless you think that you would want to date a Queen of Coins, which very well could be the case, then there could be a Queen of Coins on the horizon that's kind of a surprise that you're not expecting who would pop up. But otherwise, I'm more inclined to think that you are the Queen of Coins, right? And so we've got batons and they're descending, which is good. We do like that, from 5 to 2. Batons indicate social relationships or pressure that you might have. Could also have to do with work. I think could indicate a kind of focusing of ships. With the 5, we could think that maybe you're having to force it a little bit, like you're having to push too much effort into social relationships, which is maybe causing some energy gone haywire, causing some anxiety, that kind of thing. But the result is things sort of pare down, and so you end up with fewer, but I think then stronger social relationships, but with them being batons as opposed to cups or some of the court cards or major arcana. I think there's more of a sense of trend of pressure lessening, but not necessarily the beginning of a romance, right? We also see that here again with the Queen of Coins card, which, unless I have a reason not to, I would read as representing the querent, you, Priscilla. And so here, we can think about the Queen of Coins. She's the woman of action. She's the woman of, she's the woman who knows what she values, right? She knows what matters to her. She knows what's important to her. And so the other thing we could note is if the 5 batons go to 2, the 7 coins become 1. And so we could of a focusing or a narrowing down in what I think would be a good way of your values, right? A period of clarifying which of your social relationships are most important to you and what do you really value in life more broadly, though certainly that could also involve social relationships and your love life as well. And so I think that's sort of the work that's happening right now around your life, as opposed to coming in right away, if that makes sense, right? And timing, we can, because you did ask, right? Like you want to know if or when you would meet someone. So I would read this as going through to the fall, like the autumn, right? And so right now we're in spring, almost to summer, right? And when I'm looking at timing, I'll look at the final card down in the string of 3, and the third card is a baton, and batons I associate with the trees and therefore with the fall, with autumn. And so I would say through this summer into the fall, I think there's focusing and paring down of social relationships, as well as focusing on what is it that you really value or would value in a relationship. Okay, so here we are. We're halfway through the list at the moment. Next up is Maria Scorpio. So Maria, if you're here, feel free to post your question in the chat. And there's the rest of the list so everybody can see where we stand. You're welcome, Priscilla. And I will just also emphasize everything can change, right? Again, I'm trying to say this more because it's true, which is that this is a snapshot of how things are now. But It's also true that everything is subject to change. So it's not written in stone. This is not fate or destiny. So, Maria Scorpio, second call for Maria. Hi, you're here. Good. Fantastic. And so I think I saw a question that you posted. About your ex, wondering if he was intimate with another woman tonight. You tried to call him several times, but he didn't answer. He is flirting around. So I will pull some cards for you. I do wonder, just because I'm curious, you said he's your ex. So why does it matter if he's fooling around with other women? If he's your ex? You're addicted. Okay. So you're aware. Okay. All right. So I will indulge this. But, you know, if he's your ex, then you know, to the extent that we are focusing on our past, we may not be present for our future. But I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to answer your question. So that's what I'm going to do. Whoop. Okay, here we go. King of Coins. 3 coins. 2 cups. So this card, I believe, represents your ex. He's the King of Coins here. A growing interest with this person, with somebody, that is to say. 3 coins. With 3s, we think of things getting bigger, growing, and with coins, it's something he's interested in, something he values, that kind of a thing. And then 2 cups. So this is kind of obvious, I think. I mean, I think my answer to this would probably be yes, right? Because it starts as something that's like a practical exchange with the coins, right? But then 2 of cups, this is often the card of, think of it as two hearts, right? Like two lovers meeting, that kind of thing. So yeah. The King of Coins has a growing interest in someone that results in it's coming together. We could put it that way. And an exchange of desire, that kind of thing. Two cups. That's the cards that would indicate. Twos are about exchange, and cups are about pleasure or desire. So, exchange of pleasure or desire. Which thing, right? Was he intimate with someone? And I would say this looks like a yes. I wouldn't say it was only. I would look to coins. Coins are something we exchange. And so that was two, or happened to, but then it turns into something else, right? The Two of Cups situation, the exchange of hearts, the exchange of pleasure, exchange of desire, which, Two of Cups is one of the cards that can indicate intimacy, physical intimacy. And hi, Nisi. I'm glad you're here. I'm just finishing up Maria's reading, and then you're next, in fact, Nisi. So we could look at the surprise card, Maria. Oh. And it's the 13th Triumph card, known in some decks as Death. This suggests to me that this is a kind of one night stand. Should we put it that way? Because the king has a growing interest in someone. The two of them exchange pleasure, and then what? It's over. Right? Death is about, the death card is, some people say it's about transitions or transformation. At its most basic, I think, what does death do? It cuts things away, right? It puts an end to something. And so it's not the kind of thing that I would think would just go on and on. It's like, if I saw the Sun card here, I might think, oh, this exchange of love turns into a bright, long-lasting relationship, right? But with death here, that's like the surprise, I think, is that it's not something that's going to be long-lived. Shall we put it that way? Okay, so that brings us to Nisi Gigi. And Nisi asks, am I in a necessary season of rest or avoiding forward movement? Great question. I ask myself this all the time. And what is this period trying to teach me about surrender versus action? What a wonderfully phrased and thoughtful question. I love that. So, are you resting because you need to rest? Or are you like avoiding or procrastinating because, well, for some reason you don't want to go on to the next thing? Yeah. Let's see. This is a great question. So is Nisi in a necessary season of rest or avoiding forward movement? Here we go. Ooh, the sun. Three batons. And three cups. So let's look at this a minute, because there's a really interesting visual rhyme of threes happening. On the sun card, we have the two figures in the sun that form a kind of triangle. On the middle card here, we've got three batons, and then we've got another kind of triangle with the three cups. So I think that the answer to your question here, there's nothing here that suggests to me avoiding, right? This, that there is an equal amount of rest in accordance with the work or the effort that you're putting in to your life, right? There's a very clear balance. 3-3-3, we could put it right in the shapes, but especially with the last two cards, if we think of batons, this is work, competition, pressure, effort, right? If you're putting in 3 units of work, you're then getting 3 units of rest from it. Think about what you do with a cup. You take a drink, you recover, maybe you celebrate. Cups nourish us with water, or maybe if there's wine, maybe we're having a little party, you know? And so there's a really clear balance here. And that sounds to me like you're resting in equal accordance with how much pressure you're under or effort you're having to put in, right? And so this seems really clearly with the sense of balance in the cards to indicate the first part of your question, which is a necessary season of rest, as opposed to deliberately avoiding or inadvertently maybe avoiding forward movement. The other thing, because in your question you do ask about forward movement, I'd say is if you look at the sun card here, the figures are not moving yet, but if you imagine what's happening in this scene, there are two figures and they're in a very equal kind of symmetrical relationship. I often think of this can be a very good friendship. It can also be a relationship, like a romantic kind of relationship, but it's any kind of relationship where the two figures are equals like a partnership, right? They're enclosed. We see there's this wall, like a garden wall. We know they're outside because, of course, they're under the warmth of the sun and the rays are coming down on them. It's a very beautiful, warm, happy kind of scene, right? But one of them seems to kind of be leading the other. Like this figure is sort of showing the other one, here's where to walk now, right? And so they're not going there yet. It's not like we see the Fool card, for example, or one of the Knights where there's a clear sense of movement. But I think this is the step right before that journey starts, or right before they start to like take this step on the next step on the path, right? But I think it's saying like this is a preparation for movement in which you're resting in equal accordance with how much pressure you're under. Yeah. So I think it's the first part of your question, as opposed to deliberately avoiding moving, like where you should be and you could, but you're just maybe. I don't see anything like that. I think that what you need is rest in preparation for forward movement again. Yeah. Because, I said that this is a question I also ask myself, and now I'm sort of my own thing, but like, I think that almost universally we are all working too hard and that most of us need rest, and that the question you're asking, I think, is like a really good one that more people should probably be asking themselves about, like, do I need to rest or am I avoiding things? And I think often rest is resistance, or at least can be resistance. And, take a nap if you need, if you're tired. Hey, so there you go. Yeah, you're very welcome. Okay, so next up is Tori Marie. So Tori Marie, if you're here, please let us know that you're here. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. This is Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. Hope you're all having a fantastic weekend. I'm doing some free live readings today. My list is full at the moment. I'm so pleased. I got 10 on the list, which was my goal today. And so far, everybody's been here for their reading, which is awesome. So let's see. We've got a question here from Tori Marie. And the question is, how did Adam feel about our relationship? Does he regret leaving the way he did? And does he ever think about coming back? I think we are soulmates or past flames, maybe. Okay, so you and Adam dated at some point, and then he left. And you want to know, how does he feel about that? Does he ever think of coming back? Where do you stand with him? What's the deal with Adam now? All right, let's do it. And while I'm shuffling, I'll just say that I am also available for paid private readings for anyone who might be interested in that. And you can check out the Linktree link in the video description for more information. You're also welcome to email me at tarot.hermit.lantern@gmail.com. So we're reading for Tori Marie, who wants to know, how did Adam feel about their relationship? Does he regret leaving the way he did? Does he ever think about coming back? All right, we'll pull 3 cards and see what we get. 2 swords. The devil. And the knight of batons. Okay. Some interesting things here. Let's read it left to right. 2 swords. You know, this is an argument, perhaps, a difficult exchange, a painful exchange the two of you had at some point. And he certainly remembers it, right? Because we're thinking here about from his perspective. And so if we see the first card as kind of setting the tone for the spread, this, right? Then we've got the devil. And so with the devil, we can think about what we see in the picture, which is 2 figures who are sort of bound together. Almost, we could even say like stuck together, right? But with the terrible devil, the person in between them. And so I think he does sometimes think about going back, but I don't think things, from his perspective, I don't think things were super good between the two of you. Seems to be what he remembers. I do think there's maybe a little sense of ambivalence about it. You know, you asked coming back. Well, if you look at the Knight of Baton's body and horse face one direction, but their head and arm face another direction, right? And so there is a little sense of like, are we turning around? Are we going back? Like facing back and yet looking forward. And then, of course, with the arm extended out towards the right, towards the future. And so I do want to look at the surprise card to see what's down there. But how did he feel about the relationship? I think he thought there was conflict and that it's possible with the devil that someone wasn't being honest or completely straightforward. It could have been him. You would probably know that better than I would. But there's a sense of like maybe having had a lot of fun, because the devil can be a very fun card, but isn't necessarily good for building a long-term relationship with, right? And so he's drawn back to it, but then the movement here is more, I think, towards the way he's looking, which is to the future. So let's see what this card is. And it's coins. It's 10 coins. And so this suggests that he's off chasing or headed towards chasing something shiny and interesting. If you had the choice between going after 10 coins or the devil, which would you pick? Right? if this person has, to the extent that this person has agency, I think they're going to be more attracted towards the coins, right? People would rather have coins, which doesn't necessarily mean money. It could, although I don't think that enters into the picture here because it just isn't part of the question. But we could think of it as other interests, right? So does he think about coming back? Yes, he does. But is he going to? I don't think so. Right. Although I do think there's a sense of being tethered. The way that the ropes connect in the image makes me think that, like, it's almost like he doesn't quite feel like he can totally get free, although I think he's trying to. And hi, Kaylinda, you asked if my list is full. It is full at the moment. It's I aimed for 10 and I've got 10, and so far I've had 8 of the 10 have all been here for the reading. So there's a small chance I might reopen it depending on what happens in the next 20 minutes, half hour, but right now it's closed. Although I'm very happy to have you as a sub, and I'd love to read for you in a future live stream or at a future time. Okay, Tori. Well, I'm glad it makes sense and fits in, resonates. And so, Fabi, you're here and you're up, Fabi. So if you'd like to post your question, you're welcome to do that. Hello, Aline. Welcome. My list is closed at the moment. I am, of course, available for paid private readings for anyone who might be interested in those, and you can take a peek at my Linktree link in the video description for more info. You're also welcome to email me at tarot.hermit.lantern@gmail.com. All right. No, I love this question, Fabi. I like long questions because there's more to work with there. And I love questions that are just kind of unusual, right? Because those of you who watch tarot live streams or read cards yourself, you know that, like, sort of most of the questions you get are really similar, right? And so not that I mind those, but it is nice to get something that's new and different. And so you have a question about dancing. I like that. You're thinking of starting dance classes again at 23 years old. You stopped them when you were 12, about 11 years ago. If you were to start, is there a chance of you becoming a professional ballerina? And you mean professional not necessarily in the sense of being paid for it, but more in the sense of being really good at it to the point that you could attend a prestigious ballet school? Okay. Excellent question. I love it. Let's pull cards for it. Okay, here we go for Fabi. All right, 7 cups, 3 batons, ooh, and justice. All right, let's look at these a moment. 7 cups, 3 batons, and the question is specifically, is there a chance of you becoming a professional? So, note is the 7 cups, and the way with cups, we love cups, of course, because cups are reward, their happiness. 7, though, suggests a challenge, right? 7 is there's an obstacle in the path. And so that's the first. If you were to do this, start up dance, there might be, it's not going to be comfortable, right? This is something that while you might enjoy it, and I say that because of the cups, it's also a challenge to you. But that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you know it going into it. And, you've done dance before, so you understand what that's like and the way in which, like any athletic recreation or exercise, it hurts, right? Like, especially not that I've ever done ballet, but I've seen it, and I know that can be literally painful. Although we're not seeing swords here, except for the little one that Justice holds. So, the next thing I note is the 3 batons, and so there's some discomfort that I think will have to do with growth of muscle. Actually, with batons, we can think about putting in effort and putting in work, but also the muscular system. I'm thinking of strain on the heart in because of the 7 of cups, cups being related to liquid and fluid, and therefore blood and the heart and the challenge, and then the 3 growth of muscle, I think of as well. And so to answer the question, I think justice is the one who answers the question. And with justice, we think about things taking a very long time so that the outcome is the right decision for you. So to answer your question, I think the answer is yes. Like that you could be very good at this, that it would be a challenge, broadly speaking, to your comfort or pleasure, and more specifically, like physically, getting your heart in shape, prepared for it, that you'd have to put in the effort that would require growing muscle, right? But that slowly, and I think with justice, think about how slowly the wheels of justice turn. Justice is very, very slow. It's a very slow card. We can also think with justice, I associate this card with breathing, right? Very long, slow breaths. But with justice too, justice always makes the right decision. Always makes the right decision. So in a question about like, is this the right decision? Seeing justice come up, especially as the final card in the string, suggests to me, yes, right? Justice methodically and systematically makes the right decision. Using their mind, that with justice, it's always going to be about evidence, looking at what you know, looking at data, literally like weighing things, right? With the balance there. But slowly, very, very slowly, eventually coming to the right conclusion, making the right decision, the correct verdict might be another way to put it. So, going into it, understanding the discomfort that would be involved, the work that, but if you can look that, right, think about the way that justice is staring right at us, and understand the kind of challenge that will present to you, um, and understand how much time this kind of thing can take, because justice is such a slow car. With those things sort of weighed properly, I would say that the answer to your question is yes. And hello, welcome to Storytime Kitchen. Hi, great to have you here. My list is closed at the moment. I'm getting near the end of the live stream. Next up, in fact, we have Diamond Girl. If you're here, Diamond Girl, then I can read for you. You're welcome, Fabi. And we've got our question from Diamond Girl. Hi, Diamond Girl. I don't think I've read for you before. Maybe I've forgotten or it's a different username, but you want to know want to have some guidance on if S and you are meant to be or if you're meant to move on from him. All right. Glad to have you here, Diamond Girl. And we can definitely read for you about whether S and Diamond Girl are meant to be or meant to move on from him. Okay, here we go for Diamond Girl. Are they meant to be, or is it time to move on? Here we go. Knight of Batons, 4 Cups, Force or Strength, the 11th Triumph card. And so let's start there, but I think we're going to want to look at the surprise card because these two are both facing to the right, and I want to see what might be there that they're looking at. So 2 figures. We've got a knight and we've got a woman with a lion. And in between them are 4 cups. Well, cups we associate with love. And so in between them is love, right? And this is like, are we meant to be or should you move on? The surface level, most straightforward answer to the question is there's love between you, and that suggests, well, there's love between you, right? And so it leans more towards the first part of your question, which is, are you sort of meant to be? But as I have done throughout my readings today, I hope, and as I always try to do, I'm looking for the tension, right? So on the one hand, there seems to be a pretty obvious answer here about like 4 cups between you. That sounds pretty good, but is there anything else more involved that we could notice? And so, the first thing, of course, that comes to mind is with fours, and we have 4 cups here. So with fours, we can think of stability, security, that kind of thing, but also a sense of right, or like things reach a certain point, but then they don't get any bigger or any better. They also don't get any worse, but they just sort of can stagnate a little bit. And for those of you who might be more familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, you see a little bit more of that sense on that card in Pamela Coleman Smith's illustration of it. The figure sort of sitting against the tree and has the 3 cups and doesn't notice or doesn't pay attention to the 4th cup. And it's like, so things don't change. It's stagnant. Something's being ignored, that kind of thing. And we can get that too sometimes. And I think now with the 4 cups here in between these 2 figures. So that's one thing to note. The other thing to note with the Force card, whose strength in other versions of the tarot, so if it's not obvious, I would read him as the knight and you as the woman on the Force card, right? And so what's this guy doing? Well, he's on his horse and he's a little, as I've noticed earlier in another reading, he's kind of facing one way, but then turned the other way. And so there can be a little bit of inconsistency about which way this guy's going. But he's clearly like got his baton, so to speak, and handing it off in her direction. And so that's probably good, right? But what is she doing? Well, she's got a lion or an animal of some kind. Usually it's depicted or interpreted as a lion. And she's kind of, forcing it, right? And so there's a little bit of sense here of pushing things too hard, right? That force it, is it meant to be? Does that make sense? Right? So on the one hand, there's love between you, and if you have to force it, is it meant to be, right? And so let's look at the card at the bottom of the deck, the card looking on. Aha. And it's the Ace of Cups. So 2 things we can note about that. One, of course, the reason we flip the deck over is to see like what is in the line of sight of the 2 of you. And the answer is the Ace of Cups. And so, this is love. The other thing to note is the way that 4 small cups, turn into one really big cup. And that suggests 2 things to me. One is focus, perhaps a new beginning, like focusing in a way that sort of starts things over again, but also the 4 cups become one big cup. So there's a kind of, even as it's focused, that's how it sort of consolidates. The 4 different parts of your relationship, we could say, they sort of come together to make one thing that's bigger and stronger. So I don't see any sense of like it's time for you to move on from him. I think there's still more at a minimum that needs to be worked through in this relationship with this person. I don't see like what I see is there's something that needs to happen with things perhaps having stagnated in the relationship, and you're needing, both of you, to clarify what that is and get focused into it, so that so that it can like start over again. So there can be a new beginning to it. Because of course with aces, that's the one, that's the beginning, that's the getting started, the unity, the focus, that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say it's time to leave it behind right now. Curious about what's happening on the force card. And so, one thing we could think is if you're not talking to this person, maybe you need to force him to open his mouth, right? If we think about this figure as you, perhaps he transforms into the lion. If he's acting like a beast, maybe you need to sort of overpower him in the situation and be like, listen, whatever is going on, we have got to talk about it, right? You've got sort of have to force the lion to open his mouth. And the result of that, I think, is going to be clarifying what is at stake in the relationship for you two. And it's going to result in one of two things, which I think is ambiguous in the cards that we've drawn here. One is, as I said, the focusing from the 4 cups to the 1, which is like getting clear on what this relationship is for the two of you. And then, as I said, a new beginning, which could be a new beginning for the two of you, right? And that does seem to be obvious. But another way to think of this, potentially, is with the Ace of Cups, there's just one. And so while that can be a new beginning, it can also mean like a lonely heart, right? And so in that sense, it could mean that your heart sort of stands on its own, right? But as to whether or not you should just call it, I don't think I'd call it quits. There's something to be gained figuring out if things have gone wrong, from figuring out what happened and what that is. And if you're asking a question about like, what should I do? You've got to force him to open his mouth. You've got to force him to talk. So that's what I would say here is, this is not a cut and run situation. There is still something situation. Yeah, if you don't know what happened, I think you need to have a conversation with him about what that is. Because if you don't understand what went wrong, then whether it's this relationship or another one, like the same thing can just repeat, right? Like if we wrong in any aspect of our lives, then we just keep doing it, and then we don't know why things keep going wrong. But until we can understand it, then we can change it, right? But if we don't even know what's happening or what happened, then it just keeps happening. Yeah. And so I think that you'll need to, that there is something to be gained there from figuring out what that is. Yeah, if you can get him to open. Getting that lion to talk could be pretty tricky, but that does seem to be the advice, is to think about, from him being on his high horse, you have to sort of get him down so that you can get him to talk. Or text, or like communicate, right? That kind of thing. All right, so those are 10 readings. Everybody showed up today. That's awesome. I didn't have to skip over anybody. You're welcome, Diamond Girl. And I'm right at 2 hours. So this is exactly what I was hoping for today. 2 hours and 10 readings, and I made it on the dot. So I am going to close out the live stream for today. This was a lot of fun for me. I hope you all enjoyed it too. I know I wasn't able to read for everyone who was here, but I would be happy, of course, to read for you folks in a future live stream. I've said I am available for paid private readings. You can email me at tarot.hermit.lantern@gmail.com. The Linktree link in the video description for more information about readings, my paid readings. And I think I'll end it there. Have a fantastic evening, everyone. I've just got the last bit of my tea here. Take care of each other, and I'll see you all in the next live stream. Bye.